Lynching was finally outlawed in 2022 in the land of the free. But it wasn't easy. So lynching, well, we know it's a stain on the history of the nation of the land of the free. Since its founding, and in particular, the century following the Civil War, thousands of people in states across the nation of the US were unalived and treated gruesomely by vigilantes. They were dragged from their homes. They had ropes wrapped around their necks. They were hanged, burned, drowned, and dismembered. Often, as the president said, as their families were forced to watch and as crowds gathered to spectate. These lynchings were motivated, of course, by art to assist and meant to cause terror to those inflicted with it. They were acts committed to secure political and social control. And in today's video, we take a closer look at these phenomenons, including lynching and the bill to end lynching that was passed in 2022. But why the delay though if it was proposed first in the 1900s? Let's take a look at these videos and tell me what you think in the comments as we begin.
Hi, it's Quayne here. This is American Professor Richard D. Wolff, Professor of Economics. Listen to what he's going to say. I didn't say it, he did.
You know, you have to remember, for those of you that are not Americans, try to understand the peculiarity of this society. It is now owned and operated by descendants of Europeans. What I'm about to say should be understood particularly well in Brazil, for example, because there's similarity here. So the Europeans come and they kill all the local people. They murder them. Violent, destructive, ethnic cleansing, genocide, all apply. And it took a century or two in this country, U.S., to kill, with the few that are left stuck on reservations, which is a kind of genocide, only it goes slowly. And so it doesn't offend you so obviously. So the country is born in its modern form in an unspeakable violence that is everywhere. Northeast, south, west, midwest, it's everywhere, different times. But the slaughter of the indigenous population is the history of this country in its first 200 years, before and after independence. It's extraordinary. And the next major phenomena is, having destroyed the indigenous population, you took the indigenous people of Africa and brought them here as slaves to do what? And that for a huge part of the country. And remember, slavery existed in New York, in Ohio, all over. Not just the American South. The history of New York City is, if you want, where I live in New York City. The history of New York City is full of slave chapters of the importance of slavery in New York City. Okay, a country that is born in genocide and then graduates to become a slave. And we're not that far away from that. Slavery only ended, a century and a half ago, a little more. That's not very long in historical time. This is a country that identified its survival as dependent on mass murder in the not-so-distant past. Wow.
Wow, indeed. And it kind of makes you understand why America is backing Israel so strongly. Because the way Israel is acting is the way America acted with its own indigenous population. So it's brothers in arms, as they say. This is why the American government really wants to ban TikTok. Instead of just facing up to their history and discussing their history like the Germans did with what they did to the Jews, the American government just want to bury their head in the sand and pretend it never happened. They want to pretend that their country was born by handing out flowers. by handing out flowers and singing Kumbaya around a fire while smoking pot. Hi, it's Quainy here. And it's not my intention to make videos every day about the misery of black history. Yeah? I'm actually a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I'm a bit of a joker. You wouldn't believe that from watching all my videos, but I like history. And a lot of the history of my ancestors, especially the past 400 years, is not pleasant. But I come to my TikTok and there's always some comment from some white person telling me to stop playing the victim or stop using the race card. Yeah? We're just going to watch Kamala Harris talking about a bill she has brought to Congress that she wants passed to ban lynching, and then we'll discuss afterwards.
I stood here with Senator Booker when we first proposed this lynching law, and we talked about the pain and the history of the pain of this issue in America. And the fact is that the country is raw because America has never fully addressed the historic and systemic racism that has existed in our country. And our bill in its current form is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for this body to acknowledge the seriousness of this. To acknowledge that if someone places a noose over someone else's neck, why would you require that in addition their heart would be pulled out? Or their body pulverized to the point beyond recognition? Our bill is an opportunity to right a wrong and an opportunity for a reckoning in federal law. And we cannot pretend that lynchings are a thing of the past. Ahmaud Arbery was a victim of a modern-day lynching. He was murdered on February 23rd, 2020, just 3 months ago.
So Kamala Harris had brought a bill to Congress to outlaw lynching. It was called the Emmett Till anti-lynching law. Yeah? And it was the 200th time it had been brought to Congress to be outlawed. 200 times. So 199 times lynching or a bill to outlaw lynching was denied in America. Most of the people who were lynched after the abolition of slavery were black people. Men, women, and children. Lynching was used as a form of terrorism because they would come to your house, snatch your husband out of his bed, and lynch him. Burn him, as she said, dictate parts of his body, his head, his penis, fire hundreds of bullets into the body. And all this, they tried to ban 199 times. They tried to outlaw it. It's called the Emmett Till law because Emmett Till was a 15-year-old boy who was lynched in 1954 or 1956. Forgive me for if I've given you the wrong year. But Emmett Till, a 15-year-old boy, was lynched for supposedly winking at a white woman. We talk about our history and we're told to stop playing the victim and to shut up. Jewish people talk about the Holocaust. The Holocaust ended in 1945. Emmett Till was lynched in 1954. No one tells Jews to shut up about what happened to them. Black Americans were terrorized after the abolition of slavery. They were terrorized with their houses being burnt to the ground, churches being bombed. There was a case in 1958 where 2 black girls burnt a dead church that was bombed by the Ku Klux Klan. There are a recorded 5,000 names of people who were lynched. Some of them white, some of them Chinese, some of them Italian, but the vast majority black people. The law was passed after 200 attempts They finally passed the law to outlaw lynching in the United States of America. It's to me, it's beyond logic that a government would allow citizens to go around and just grabbing people and kill them and not face the law for doing it. That's why you have so many photographs of white people standing under dead black bodies hanging from trees, because they know there'll be no consequences. There's a film called Fury starring Spencer Tracy, came out about 1936, I think, and he's a white man, victim of a lynching. He's supposedly as a red girl in a town. He's a stranger in town, so of course he gets the blame, and he's in prison, and a mob comes to the prison to lynch him. They can't get him out of prison, so they set the jail on fire, and he supposedly burns death, but he doesn't. And he comes back for revenge. Because this lynching was filmed, a lot of the people, the instigators of it, those who threw the petrol or whatever, were seen on film. And Spencer Tracy is able to take them to court and prosecute them for attempted murder. So this film shows a white man victim of lynching, but he is allowed to prosecute those who tried to lynch him. But when it happened to black people, people could stand in front of cameras smiling, knowing that there'll be no prosecution, knowing there'll be no justice for those. Even the Supreme Court, the United States Congress, will not give them justice and would turn it down 199 times until 2022. 2022, lynching was finally outlawed in the United States of America. Wow, that's a long time ago, isn't it?
The bill against lynching in the United States was signed into law by the current President Uncle Sam, on March 29, 2022, known as the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. It designates lynching as a federal hate crime. This historical legislation comes after more than a century of failed attempts by lawmakers to address this issue. Perpetrators of lynching now face up to 30 years in jail for their actions. The act is named after Emmett Till, a black teenager who was brutally unalived in Mississippi in 1955. This has played a significant role in sparking the civil rights movement. And I'm pretty sure we all know the story of Emmett Till. We've discussed about this in a lot of stories concerning our videos. Now, what were some of the reasons that made the bill to fail to be passed in the first place? The bill against lynching faced significant challenges before its passage in 2022. For over 120 years, a committed Senate minority used rules to block change and maintain the Jim Crow system in the South. Additionally, an earlier version of the bill was passed by the House in 2019, but it stalled in the Senate. Despite these obstacles, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act now designates lynching as a federal hate crime, carrying a maximum sentence of 30 years in prison, as we've said. Now, the arguments against passing the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act were multifaceted. Some opponents believed that existing laws were significant to address hate crimes, while others expressed concerns about federal overreach. Additionally, there were debates about the definition of lynching and whether it should be a federal offense. Despite these challenges, the bill ultimately passed, acknowledging the importance of addressing historical racial violence and promoting justice. So as you would guess, palm coloreds failed to adhere and to be responsible for the crimes they caused, as always. Now, these are palm coloreds in high ranks, right? They've done more damage for over 120 years. Just imagine how many people were going missing, getting unalived, getting mistreated. At that time, they had not yet defined what lynching was. So they had to define it for over 120 years. And now that it was defined, by the year 2022, it managed to pass. Now, that is the reason why, regardless of what a palm color says, the Constitution that was written by a palm colored is always going to safeguard the needs of a palm colored. Because as we've heard from this brother's perspective, a palm colored got justice for the lynching that he was faced with. Because those people that lynched him thought he got unalived in the process, but he didn't. He took them to court and they went through that trial and he got the justice that he deserved, even though in the first place, he's the one that tried to grape somebody. Some perspectives are mind-blowing, ain't they? And this reminds me of the statement from that book, Animal Farm, or the movie or the play, regardless of whichever phenomenal version that you know of it, but I know it's a story or a novel, right? The rule that suggests all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. You know, it reminds me of the Trump train's Project 25 proposal, trying to become more equal than others in the process. You know, it's so funny that that book is actually happening, and it has been happening for centuries. Look it up, the book Animal Farm, and tell me what you would think after you read it. Now, the public opinion played a crucial role in the passage of the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Advocacy groups, civil rights organizations, and concerned citizens raised awareness about the historical significance of lynching and the need for a federal legislation. And that is the reason why people like you and I, regardless of which communities we come from, we should always support one another's causes. Because this was one of the most significant things that happened that managed to make the bill to be passed of lynching. Because people were talking about this on social media, civil rights organizations, as we've talked about. They organized campaigns, shared stories, and put pressure on lawmakers to act. And this should tell you that all the time, when citizens put pressure on their government must listen. Just look at what's happening in Kenya. Now, I don't know if you're familiar, but the youths in Kenya are taking to social media doing all kinds of things because they didn't want a bill to be passed, right? And now they're furious because the lawmakers are not listening to them. So who knows what's going to happen, but the world is listening and the world is hearing their cries. Now, public opinion shifted, recognizing the urgency of addressing racial violence and promoting justice. The collective voice of the people helped propel this landmark legislation forward. Legislation has been introduced to the United States Congress more than 200 times. Advanced leaders such as James Weldon Johnson of the NAACP or NAACP, and of course, the phenomenal Ida B. Wells, those who courageously knew what had to be done and were undeterred. And when we speak of Ida B. Wells, let's understand the courageous nature of that incredible American who used the skill, her profession, her calling as a journalist. As President Uncle Sam noted, to help open the eyes of our nation to the terror of the lynching, which speaks, of course, to the role that we have known also historically. Anti-lynching legislation was introduced in the wake of some of these most brutal attacks. After the unaliving of Mary Turner in 1918, after the unaliving of Emmett Till in 1955, and James Bayard Jr. in 1998, and James Craig Anderson in 2011, and it failed again and again. In summary, this report further says that after it failed and again, leaders in the black community and those in the parliament or in civil rights movements who understood the importance of such a cause in this bill stood up again, as we've seen in the case of Kamala Harris. They stood up again and called for it to be attended to. And after that, it was signed into law. Hence, we are where we are now. Now, leave your thoughts in the comment section and tell me what you think about today's video and what we've discussed about concerning lynching. I'll see you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy our content, remember to leave us your thoughts in the comment section and tell us what you enjoy most about our videos. I'll see you in the next video. Signing off now. Take care.